capitalism, all of the gains in automation, it goes to the owner class. All you have to do is have everyone be an owner, and now suddenly any gain in automation is a gain for everybody. If you grow just one thing, it may not grow as well as if it grows with another thing. A good example of that is called the Three Sisters method of farming.
There is definitely multi-apartment buildings or multi-families that do passive design.
$100 million that they gave to Joe Rogan that they would kind of be out if they breach contract. Is that a bigger number? Or is $2 billion a bigger number?
I don't know, Zach.
It's a tough one. I know.
It's really hard.
And maybe comparing numbers is not Jeremy's strong suit. Gotta go kill a Jenny.
I still don't think you should kill her. I don't think it's a good idea.
It's a ghost, dude. Welcome back, everybody, to Bread Theory. Tonight we're continuing on. This is the second to last chapter in Alexander Berkman's What is Communist Anarchism? This one is on production. And joining me tonight is Trisha from the For We Are Many podcast. How you doing tonight, Trisha?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. Happy 420 to you.
Happy 420 to you as well. Glad to be here to celebrate it with you.
Yeah. And what better way than thinking about a better system, one that doesn't criminalize people for doing things that people have done throughout history. Mm-hmm. All right. So, is there anything you want to mention before we got into the book tonight?
Not that I can think of really, other than any of our followers over at For We Are Many, keep your eyes peeled for new branding launching. We will be hitting everything on May 1st with some new visual candy for you guys.
Exciting. And another very appropriate date, May Day.
Yep.
Good day to launch new stuff.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, I just want to give a brief shout out to the Left Signal Boost TV collective, which Bread Theory is a proud member of. There's 13 of us now, and hopefully counting, who share this page together on Facebook. You can go check it out for yourself. I stream there all of my streams, as well as For We Are Many does as well, and a few other people. And there's artists, there's YouTube creators, there's authors, all sorts of cool stuff going on there. So go check that out. And with that, let's get into the chapter tonight. So again, this is, we're using Audible Anarchist, a really great resource on YouTube. I will link that video before we get going, in case you want to follow along in your own time, or in case you missed something and you want to go back easily. There's the way to do it. And so this one is on production. Let's get into it.
This audio production was made in collaboration with Audible Anarchist.
Chapter 30. Production. What about production, you ask? How is it to be managed? We have already seen what principles must underlie the activities of the revolution if it is to be social and accomplish its aims. The same principles of freedom and voluntary cooperation must also direct the reorganization of industries. The first effect of the revolution is reduced production. The general strike, which I have forecast as the starting point of the social revolution, itself constitutes a suspension of industry. The workers lay down their tools, demonstrate in the streets, and thus temporarily stop production. But life goes on. The essential needs of the people must be satisfied. In that stage, the revolution lives on the supplies already at hand. But to exhaust those supplies would be disastrous. The situation rests in the hands of labor. The immediate resumption of industry is imperative. The organized agriculture and industrial proletariat takes possession of the land, factories, shops, mines, and mills. Most energetic application is now the order of the day. It should be clearly understood that the social revolution necessitates more intensive production than under capitalism in order to supply the needs of the large masses who till then had lived in penury. This greater production can be achieved only by the workers having previously prepared themselves for the new situation. Familiarity with the processes of industry, knowledge of the sources of supply, and determination to succeed will accomplish the task. The enthusiasm generated by the revolution, the energies liberated, and the inventiveness stimulated by it must be given full freedom and scope to find creative channels. Revolution always wakens a high degree of responsibility. Together with the new atmosphere of liberty and brotherhood, it creates the realization that hard work and severe self-discipline are necessary to bring production up to the requirements of consumption. On the other hand, the new situation will greatly simplify the present very complex problems of industry. For you must consider that capitalism, because of its competitive character and contradictory financial and commercial interests, involves many intricate and perplexing issues, which would be entirely eliminated by the abolition of the conditions today. Questions of wage scales and selling prices, the requirements of the existing markets and hunt for new ones, the scarcity of capital for large operations, and heavy interest to be paid on it, new investments, the effects of speculation and monopoly, and a score of related problems which worry the capitalist and make industry such a difficult and cumbersome network today, would all disappear.
That's an interesting way of thinking of it. Usually when you tell people, oh, anarchists and eventually communists as well too, want to do away with the monetary system and the market-based economy eventually as well, and just do things by mutual aid and stuff, they always seem to think that things would be too complicated doing it that way. But just think of all the complicated financial stuff that takes place right now, that even the people that do like complicated stock trades, that some of the things that brought about the first housing crisis, like the mortgage-backed security swaps and all these other complicated financial tools, and today like NFTs and stuff like that, the stuff that people that are really even boosters of it don't seem to really understand. All that would just be done with. We wouldn't do that anymore.
Right. This would simplify things greatly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Simply handling supply and demand. Why would we even need a stock market? All that is just a graph of rich people's feelings.
That is a good way of putting it.
I forget who originally said that. I heard it months ago and was like, it's that. All the fucking way.
It's spot on, because it has nothing to do with actual production. It has nothing to do with any sort of real valuation of these companies. It's just, what do we bet is going to be good? What do we bet people are going to think is good? And then you have companies like Uber, who I believe still have yet to turn a profit, because year after year they just take all of their earnings and plow it back into expanding their market. It's certainly not going to the drivers, these increased earnings year after year, but they're constantly having to take on more and more investment dollars, and yet they're celebrated as one of the industry disruptors, and all this stuff that doesn't make sense. Stop to think about it.
Yeah, they need to pay their employees better too.
Absolutely.
They are not disrupting anything until they actually, start to act accordingly to ethics when it comes to business practices. So,
right, absolutely. Yeah, I feel bad for the people that are still stuck in that job. I did it for about 3 years, and even then it was hard to really make a good living once you take out for all your different expenses, and especially the wear and tear in your car. You end up making like $10 an hour working full time. I was working 10-hour days easily. But I guess you don't see it as the driver as much, because, you pull in $100, $150 in a shift, especially if it's like a weekend shift, you can double that, and it doesn't really compute. as like, well, no, you got to take out for this, you got to take out for that.
Right. It might look like you're making between 20 and 25 bucks an hour, but by the time you cover, brakes, tires,
Yes.
shocks,
Well, and just getting an oil change every month, that
Oil
adds up pretty
change.
quick too. Because I was
Yeah.
putting enough miles that it was like literally every month I would be in there again. And then there's car washes, and especially in winter in Minnesota when everything's crusted in salt. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Your time
it's
cleaning the car, who knows what all gets dropped by
oh
customers.
yeah, yeah, that's for sure too. Um, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but still, we could do away with all this financialization of everything, and people just give what they have to one another, and organize things through any number of systems. Um, you could, with the advent of the internet, it's much simpler than in Berkman's time to communicate with people that could be across the city, across the country, across the world, find out what people need, and figure out how to send it there,
Yeah.
and for them to do the same thing. Uh, I guess what it takes more than anything is enough people to will this sort of a system to happen. Um, but yeah, I did like how he puts it in there. A lot of these complications of modern day life would go away. All these worries about financial troubles. If there's no financial system, if everyone just has a house and food and the necessities of life, there goes the number one stress point of most people. Um,
Right. Right. That. It
yeah,
again hails back to Marx's words of from each according to their ability, to each according to their need.
absolutely, absolutely. I come back to that phrase again and again because it's such a simple phrase, but it sums things up so nicely because it includes everybody, even people with disabilities, even people that are being cared for by other people. They still have needs, and it recognizes that and says that they deserve to have those needs met. And it
Yeah.
doesn't demand of them that they contribute things that they're physically, mentally, emotionally incapable of producing. It just says what you can,
Yeah.
and take what you need. I think it's a simple yet it's a really beautiful, you know, guiding star for any leftist movement.
Yep. Absolutely.
All
Marx's
right.
wisdom.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's why he keeps getting read. You know, when he died, this is well more than 100 years after he's died. I think he died in
Right.
the late 1890s. So yeah, going on, um, probably getting close to 130 years since his death. Um,
And everything he said is still relevant.
yeah, tragically, but also hopefully, it gives me hope as well that at least there's someone out there who study these things in depth. At least there are people who actually do care about this stuff enough to put it to paper and preserve it throughout the ages.
Right. I like his stance because when it comes to the scientific method, there's so many other things that we've already applied it to for a long time.
Yeah,
Why not apply that to or not psychology, sociology?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
let's employ some good social science and
Yeah.
try and construct a community based on the values that we have, which, I guess any leftist worth their salt at least believes in the equality of people. And
Right.
if you start from there, it's kind of hard to see how you'd ever get to a system with unjust hierarchies. Um,
Right.
at least you wouldn't intentionally get there. You might get there by accident, but still, in theory, you're always pushing towards a more egalitarian society, a less hierarchical society,
Yeah.
and one where everyone has enough.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes learning through some things and going, oh shit, we did that wrong. Let's fix that.
Absolutely,
You know?
absolutely.
So,
That's a big reason to study these historical texts as well, as you can see where the thinking was at the time, how it applied. We have a lot more insight that we can bring to it because we know how things turned out. So,
right.
all right,
Absolutely.
let's move on.
Present, these require diverse departments of study and highly trained men to keep unraveling the tangled skein of plutocratic cross purposes. Many specialists to calculate the actualities and possibilities of profit and loss, and a large force of aides to help steer the industrial ship between the perilous rocks which beset the chaotic course of capitalist competition, national and international. All this would be automatically done away with by the socialization of industry and the termination of the competitive system, and thereby the problems of production will be immensely lightened. The knotted complexity of capitalist industry need therefore inspire no undue fear for the future. Those who talk of labor not being equal to manage, quote, modern industry fail to take into account the factors referred to above. The industrial labyrinth will turn out to be far less formidable on the day of the social reconstruction. In passing, it may be mentioned that all the other phases of life would also be very much simplified as a result of the indicated changes. Various present-day habits, customs, compulsory and unwholesome modes of living would naturally fall into disuse. Furthermore, it must be considered that the task of increased production would be enormously facilitated by the addition to the ranks of labor of vast numbers whom the altered economic conditions will liberate for work. Recent statistics show that in 1920 there were in the United States over 41 million persons of both sexes engaged in gainful occupations out of a total population of over 105 million. Out of those 41 million, only 26 million were actually employed in the industries, including transportation and agriculture, the balance of 15 million consisting mostly of persons engaged in trade of commercial, travelers, advertisers, and other middlemen of the present system. In other words, 15 million people would be released for useful work by a revolution in the United States.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that brings to mind David Graeber's book, Bullshit Jobs, which is a great one. Have you read that one at all, Trisha?
No, but I've heard about it.
Oh, I highly recommend that. He talks about, he goes through these different sorts of jobs that are bullshit, and a lot of them come down to things like the entire insurance industry, where if we just had socialized medicine, they wouldn't need to work doing that stuff. But it's also stuff like, people who are hired yes men, people that are just there to tick a box, to fill out reports, basically, that no one ever reads and stuff like that. And all sorts of these middlemen, the same sort of people that Berkman is talking about. And isn't that true, that under our capitalist system, all these people are locked in their jobs? They can't really, the economy can't do without them in some regard. But at the same time, they don't really produce much of value for society, even advertisement, as he said. If we don't have a system where we have to try and trick people into buy products so that we can get rich, that does away with a lot of the need for advertising. I mean, there'll still be like self-promotion and stuff like that, and people getting ideas out there. But for just like your average trade goods, it'd just be more like, posting on a website of some kind. We have such and such goods. Whoever needs them can take an order for them. Stuff like that. So that does away with all that stuff. And yeah, how many people would that free? I'm sure even today it'd be millions upon millions of people that could then devote themselves to what they really want to do with their life. Or how many people are just stuck in really menial labor jobs that they hate, low-level fast food jobs, or and any number of jobs that people just don't like doing. They could be freed from those jobs as well, and
Right.
put their efforts towards more useful stuff.
Right. Businesses like that are talking about wanting to automate so many things for their own personal profit margin. Well, no, we should automate them, but
Yeah.
in order to make them more available to everyone and to
Yeah.
free up the time of the people who would be doing that labor unnecessarily without it affecting everyone's ability to survive.
Absolutely. Yeah, automation is great as long as the benefit goes to everybody. If it's just going to the few
Yep.
people that happen to be the lucky owners, then, well, automation is bad. It's bad for the economy. It's bad for um, people that depend on that for their living. But
Right.
just flip it around. Make automation, make all the gains of automation socialized,
Yep.
and there you go. Uh,
Problem fucking
every new
solved.
robot is another labor that's freed from drudgery or backbreaking work of one kind or another. There's no reason we all should have to uh, toil at very difficult manual labor jobs that could be taken over by automation. Um, but yeah, if we're not worrying about people starving or being out of work because of that, then yeah, no reason not to do that sort of thing.
Right. Just has to be a benefit for everyone, not a few hands. But, that would also mean, um, you know, seizing the means of McDonald's.
Yeah, seizing the
uh,
Mick means of production.
yes. You got to seize it all.
Yeah, yeah,
Public
absolutely,
access.
absolutely. Because the food industry at its base is a vital industry. It feeds people. That's definitely a good thing. But
Yeah.
um, it could certainly be a lot better if it treated the workers better. If the workers could decide for themselves how things were run, and if they again didn't have to worry about the economics of it, they could just focus on doing the customer service, distributing food to people. That could be one avenue
Right.
that mutual aid is redistributed. All these different resources. Um,
Yep. And
yeah,
who
just
knows?
think
With it being in the hands of the people, maybe it would go back to being real food again, and it's
absolutely
not just this filler shit.
right,
If we're
right.
going to make it available, it should actually provide sustenance and nutrition, not just fillers.
Yeah, and with so many millions of people being freed from the drudgery of their 9 to 5 jobs, and the average person having to probably work a lot less, um, because they would just be able to choose that, then the concept of fast food becomes a lot less relevant. I think it just automatically would. So people would have time to stop and have a more leisurely meal with friends or family or whatever. It wouldn't just be like I just need to fill my stomach in between, the hour commute home and the half hour before I then have to go to bed before I get back up to work again. And I need to have something fast, so this is just going to have to cut it. All those sorts of decisions just go out the window then.
Right? We can also put an end to the 30-minute lunch hour that's no longer an hour and hasn't been for a long time. That
Exactly.
is part of that too. Why people are rushed even in the middle of the day. Not enough time to even sit down and enjoy food. It's like, nope, what can I grab in a hurry in this drive-through and shove in my face on the way back to the office?
Absolutely, absolutely. And in the Conquest of Bread, Peter Kropotkin talked a lot about um, how there's so much overproduction in basically every industry because, not only do you have to produce enough to then have your company be able to pay you, but then you just have to keep working and working and working for the profit for your boss. Well, if we do away with all that profit, there's no longer the need to keep working. You can work until, you've produced enough goods to satisfy the demand. And he talked about just calculating out the demands of people. Take a given population, say they need such and such number of calories per year, such and such number, free water or whatever, such and such number of board feet for construction and housing, repairs and stuff like that. Do go industry by industry, calculate it all out, and then determine, well, okay, so this is how much we have to work as a society to produce this stuff. And once we hit that point, that's it. Maybe we work a little bit more in case there's a disaster to, store away some reserves. But really, beyond that point, what more is the purpose to keep on working? At that
Right.
point,
Take
let's
a
all just
break.
enjoy. Yeah, let's just enjoy each other. Um, I mean, that's basically what the peasants of medieval Europe were able to do. They produced until
Mhm.
they had enough for themselves and to pay their lords, and maybe a little bit to store away. And then that was it. The rest of their time was theirs. It was just leisure. We don't even
Right.
get that anymore.
Right. Like literally, if you were a feudal farmer, you would work in the spring to till up
Hmm.
the land and get everything planted. And then you'd
Hmm.
have the majority of the summer off to go travel and do whatever.
Yeah,
And then in the fall, you'd come harvest everything, handle your shit, get
yeah,
everything paid, and
absolutely.
have all the winter off.
Yeah, yeah, and a part of that too was they didn't have things like, widespread irrigation, so you had to plant crops that were appropriate for your climate and were you'd be pretty certain would be there in the fall when you come back. But now, because there's irrigation, there's application of herbicides and pesticides and fertilization, all these different things that you can do as a farmer. It just keeps farmers working year round. Doesn't
Well,
have to
so
be
much
that
of
way.
that is fucking unnecessary. A lot of that use of, pesticides and stuff like that is to preserve the excess because they're going for the overproduction.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You have to. I mean, production itself was oriented around things like crop subsidies for things like wheat and corn and stuff like that, because the government will guarantee you a price, um, a profitable price, so you don't have to worry about overproducing. So that incentivizes more people to do it. That's one of the reasons that highly refined grains, which tend to be the lowest quality food for people, are so inexpensive, is because they're highly subsidized in one way or another. But we could just
Yeah.
stop that stuff and start producing for human nutrition instead. Um,
Right. A lot of times they're overproducing simply because it's like, oh, well, in order to get this grant money, you have to be, planting X number of acres
that
to
too.
grow. And it could be far more than what's even needed to supply, but they're still going to do it just to be able to hit that quota and get the grant money. Um, and it all comes into play there. We end up using shit like nicotinoids that are not only harming us, they're harming the environment. They're killing off all the bees that
Killing
pollinate
the
everything,
bees. Yeah.
keep the plant life going. If the bees die, everything dies.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
you
Oh,
know,
and that whole issue. I mean, no matter which way you look at it, it's all basically because of overproduction and overexploitation of the land. So these beehives, they get moved from farm to farm, and that's a stress on the bees. And they try to time things between pesticide and herbicide applications, but it doesn't always happen exactly right. So that's a threat to them as well, and that weakens them. And they're breaking open the hive constantly to take out honey and stuff like that, and that threatens the bees. All of this, just the idea that we can turn living things into just like a conveyor belt of inputs and outputs, like any other industry. It's just, I mean, it's ruining everything. It's destroying the bees. It's the main cause of colony collapse disorder. The main reason that parasites, because that's another threat to the bees, but they wouldn't be as threatened by these parasites if they weren't being moved around as much and being worked so hard and all these other things. But
right.
yeah, treating the living earth like just another factory is destroying it, and it's all in the name of profit. So let's do away with the profit motive altogether, and move more into the human sustainability motive. Um, and if you have that in mind, and you start turning towards ideas like permaculture and restorative agriculture, all these different ways to think differently and more long term and holistic about producing food, well, then just automatically you're getting away from the industrialization of the natural world, and we're becoming more just one more part of the ecosystem than the only part of the ecosystem that has any agency at all.
Absolutely. Things like that with a lot of the permaculture gardens I've seen, people are incorporating, flowers into the areas where their food is at as well
Yeah.
because that'll draw pollinators in.
Pollinators
It's
as
a matter of
as
working with environment.
Yeah, work with nature instead of against it. That was a big thing that Bill Mollison, one of the founders of permaculture, this thing he would always say. It was one of his main principles. Work with nature instead of against it. Because like why fight upstream? Go with the flows of energy as they are going, and you'll make less work for yourself, and you'll be less exhausted. You'll have more time and energy to enjoy the bounty of your labor. Um, yeah, that's what permaculture is all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, moving on.
A similar situation, proportionate to population, would develop in other countries. The greater production necessitated by the social revolution would therefore have an additional army of many millions of persons at its disposal. The systemic incorporation of those millions into industry and agriculture, aided by modern scientific methods of organization and production, will go a long way toward helping solve the problems of supply. Capitalist production is for profit. More labor is used today to sell things than to produce them. The social revolution reorganizes the industries on the basis of the needs of the populace. Essential needs come first, naturally: food, clothing, and shelter. These are the primal requirements of man. The first step in this direction is the ascertaining of the available supply of provisions and other commodities. The labor associations in every city and community take this work in hand for the purpose of equitable distribution. Workers' committees in every street and district assume charge, cooperating with similar committees in the city and state, and federating their efforts throughout the country by means of general councils of producers and consumers.
So in Berkman's system, this is how things scale up. So you start with your small unit. Maybe it's a neighborhood, maybe it's an entire town. It doesn't necessarily matter all that much. But then you federate with larger and larger bodies. So you federate with your neighbors into a region-wide consortium, basically. Or I guess he's talking about calling them councils, general councils. And then those councils federate with, statewide or bioregion-wide, up and up that way. So again, we're looking at the bottom-up organization of things as opposed to a more top-down way of organizing things, but still trying to coordinate efforts to have a modern, fairly complex and adaptable sort of society and standard of living.
Absolutely. Well said.
Oh, thanks. Hello, John. Good to see you again. Glad to have you back. You said thank you, Natalie.
I didn't tag Natalie, but I didn't see any comments from Natalie pop up. So if you're here, hi to you too.
yeah. Hi, Natalie, if you're there. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing your comments if you're trying to post any. All right. Moving on.
Great events and upheavals bring to the fore the most active and energetic elements. Social revolution will crystallize the class-conscious labor ranks. By whatever name they will be known as: industrial unions, revolutionary syndicalist bodies, cooperative associations, leagues of producers and consumers. They will represent the most enlightened and advanced part of labor. The organized workers, aware of their aims and how to attain them, it is they who will be the moving spirit of the revolution. With the aid of industrial machinery and by scientific cultivation of the land, freed from monopoly, the revolution must first supply the elemental wanes of society. In farming and gardening, intense cultivation and modern methods have made us practically independent of natural soil quality and climate. To a very considerable extent, Man now makes his own soil and his own climate, thanks to the achievements of chemistry. Exotic fruits can be raised in the north to be supplied to the warm south, as is being done in France. Science is the wizard who enables man to master all difficulties and overcome all obstacles. The future, liberated from the incubus of the profit system and enriched by the work of those millions of non-producers today, holds the greatest welfare for society. That future must be the objective point of the social revolution. Its motto, bread and well-being for all. First bread, then well-being and luxury. Even luxury, for luxury is a deep-felt need of man, and a need of his physical as of his spiritual being. Intense application to this purpose.
Hold on, just got disconnected there somehow. Let's see if I can reconnect with her. Yeah, looks like she's having connection issues. I haven't seen that on my end. Network is 10 out of 10 on my end. So I'm just going to wait 1 second here. I'm going to send the link out onto Patreon. Oh, there she is. Welcome back.
Thanks.
That's-
Restream likes to boot me out into the fucking ether every now and then.
It's so weird. Oh, I'm sorry you're still getting that issue.
I don't know what the deal is. Like, it's showing plenty strong enough signal to hold the hotspot. So, I don't know. It's temperamental.
All right. Well, let's hope it holds now. Do you want me to back up a little bit, or were you able to catch what was said?
I couldn't hear anything, but I mean, it's okay. Like, I don't want you to have to rewind a few minutes for that.
Okay. All right.
It's all good. I'll catch up.
Cool.
Must be the continuous effort of the revolution, not something to be postponed for a distant day, but of immediate practice. The revolution must strive to enable every community to sustain itself, to become materially independent. No country should have to rely on outside help or exploit colonies for its support. That is the way of capitalism. The aim of anarchism, on the contrary, is material independence, not only for the individual, but for every community. This means gradual decentralization instead of centralization. Even under capitalism, we see the decentralization tendency manifest itself in spite of the essentially centralistic character of the present-day industrial system. Countries which were before entirely dependent on foreign manufacture, as Germany in the last quarter of the 19th century, later in Italy and Japan, and now in Hungary, Czechoslovakia, etc., are gradually emancipating themselves industrially, working their own natural resources, building their own factories and mills, and attaining economic independence from other lands. International finance does not welcome this development and tries its utmost to retard its progress, because it is more profitable for the Morgans and Rockefellers to keep such countries as Mexico, China, India, Ireland, or Egypt
movie. Okay. I wasn't sure if it was me that froze or if it was Zach. Give me a second. I'm messaging him. Crap. Send him a. Okay, that went blurry. I'm going to see if he can rejoin this same link again. Give me just a moment to figure out if he can log back on this one. If not, we might have to restart a new link. Apologies. We're having signal issues all over the fucking place this week. It's ridiculous. You know, John, that kind of makes me wonder. It really does. Because, you know, it doesn't make sense. If you could see my screen right now, like my 5G is lit up with all 5 bars. And it kicked me out into the ether a few minutes ago when it was just like wavering back and forth between a few bars and full bars, you know. But either way, still should have had plenty of signal to keep me connected and booted me out, and now it booted Zach out. And on Monday night, we couldn't get a solid connection at all because of, you know, a storm that was blowing through his area. But seems to me there's more to it than that when I see other people in the same areas able to still go live. Damn, you too, Natalie? Man, this really makes me wonder. But I showed him what's displaying on the screen so that he can see. He hasn't said anything back yet about whether it's working to try to rejoin the same link or not. Yeah, John, I wouldn't be surprised with the AI programs that are out there of just automating it. Because they really don't like people talking about the shit that we talk about. At all. And when I say they, you take it as that, you know, they registered trademark. Yeah. The powers that be. They don't like conversations that are talking about completely undermining their entire shit. But let's see if we can get Zach back in here. Just give me a moment, guys. I'm messaging him again. Agreed, Natalie. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Zach is restarting his router and stuff right now. Said he had tried that the other night. See if he could get a strong enough signal to stay connected. So thank you for your patience bearing with us here. Once again, technical fucking difficulties getting in the way of shit. Reading your comment now, John. Yeah, that the programming does have that fucking capacity to do that. It's bullshit. It's First Amendment violation across the fucking board. Zach says that his internet went down completely. He's going to have to set up a new link once it's back up. So, if you guys want to bear with us for a few minutes, I'll go ahead and shut this one down and restart Restream. And as soon as he gets his internet back up, we'll open up a new link, but it'll still be, broadcasting to the same pages here and stuff. You guys can hop back in. And as far as a VPN, it might. I don't know. I do have one on my computer, and it helps with a lot of stuff. But I don't know. I guess I would have had to taken down data of how frequently I got booted into the fucking ether before having the VPN versus after. I really can't give you any analysis there on it. But anywho, I'm going to go ahead and close this link down and give Zach a moment to get his internet back up and running, and we will rejoin you in just a few minutes, okay? Sorry for the disruption, but thank you again for the patience. And yeah, I feel that, Natalie. It's not like we have millions upon millions of people following us, but who knows? Maybe, if it's an algorithm that is made in a program to just recognize any kind of conversation that is dissent to the current system, then it would wipe out everybody's shit, big or little, But anywho, all right, I will see you back in here in just a few minutes. I'm going to shut this one down. James, it's okay. We're having some signal issues. I was actually just about to close this one down. Zach's internet went out, and he is trying to get everything restarted, so we're going to have to share a fresh link in a minute, okay? Right on, Jim. John, I see your comment. All right. Give us just a few minutes, and we'll pop a fresh link up on the page.